Springfield City Zoo, a sunny Saturday afternoon in June 2019. Families enjoying ice cream, children laughing at the monkey exhibit, couples strolling through the peaceful grounds. Everything was perfect until the alarm sounded. A 450-pound male lion had escaped from his enclosure. Panic erupted instantly. Parents grabbed their children and ran. Teenagers scrambled for the exits. Zoo employees shouted evacuation orders through megaphones. Within seconds, hundreds of people were fleeing in terror, their screams echoing through the pathways. But in the middle of this chaos, one person didn't move. An 82-year-old woman with silver hair sat calmly on a bench near the lion habitat, her wrinkled hands folded peacefully in her lap. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She just sat there, watching as the massive lion emerged from the trees and walked straight toward her. What happened next shocked everyone. The zoo staff, the police, the news reporters who arrived minutes later, and the millions of people who would watch the video footage. Because this wasn't just a story about a lion escaping. This was a story about a bond that defied logic, a connection that transcended species, and a moment of recognition that proved love never truly dies. If you love stories about extraordinary connections between humans and animals, hit that subscribe button now. This true story will leave you speechless. The woman. Her name was Margaret Anderson, though everyone called her Maggie. At 82, she was a widow who lived alone in a small apartment 3 blocks from the Springfield City Zoo. She visited the zoo every Saturday without fail, rain or shine, for the past 12 years. Maggie had been a zookeeper for 40 years before she retired in 2007. Not just any zookeeper, she specialized in big cats. Lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, these magnificent predators were her life's work. She dedicated 4 decades to understanding them, caring for them, and advocating for their welfare. Her colleagues remembered her as fearless but never reckless. She understood that these animals were wild, dangerous, and deserving of respect. But she also believed that with patience, consistency, and genuine care, you could form bonds with animals that others thought impossible. Maggie's husband, Robert, had died in 2007, just months after her retirement. They'd never had children. The animals at the zoo had been their family. After Robert's death, Maggie fell into a deep depression. She'd lost her husband and her purpose on the same year. The apartment felt empty. The days felt endless. But she kept returning to the zoo. Every Saturday, she'd sit on the same bench near the lion habitat for hours, watching the big cats, remembering her years of service, feeling close to the work that had defined her life. The current zoo staff knew her by sight, though most of them had been hired after her retirement and didn't know much about her background. The lion. The lion's name was Aslan, named after the great lion from the Narnia stories. He was 12 years old, which is middle-aged for a lion. He'd been at Springfield Zoo for 11 years, arriving as a young cub rescued from a circus that had been shut down for animal abuse. Aslan had been traumatized when he first arrived. The circus had kept him in a tiny cage, beaten him to perform tricks, and fed him poorly. He was underweight, aggressive, and terrified of humans. The zoo's veterinary team didn't think he would survive, but one zookeeper refused to give up on him. Maggie Anderson spent 18 months rehabilitating Aslan. She worked with him every single day, feeding him by hand, speaking to him in soft tones, sitting near his enclosure for hours at a time so he'd get used to her presence. She never forced interaction. She let Aslan come to her on his own terms. Slowly, over many months, the traumatized cub began to trust her. He'd approach the fence when she arrived. He'd make soft chuffing sounds, a form of lion greeting, when he saw her. Eventually, he'd allow her to touch his mane through the fence, his massive head pressing against the bars to get closer to her gentle hands. Maggie was the only keeper Aslan fully trusted. Other staff could work with him, but the bond between Maggie and Aslan was unique. Everyone at the zoo could see it. When she retired in 2007, Aslan became noticeably more withdrawn. He ate less. He paced his enclosure more. He seemed to be mourning her absence. The escape wasn't Aslan's fault. A severe thunderstorm the previous night had damaged part of the lion habitat's fencing. The zoo's maintenance team had identified the problem and scheduled repairs for Monday morning. In the meantime, they'd added temporary barriers and increased monitoring. But they underestimated Aslan's intelligence and strength. At 2:17 p.m. on that Saturday afternoon, he noticed a gap in the temporary fencing. With surprising agility for a 450-pound animal, he squeezed through, pushed aside some safety netting, and found himself in a restricted service area. From there, it was a simple matter to follow the pathways into the public areas of the zoo. The alarms triggered immediately, but Aslan was already loose among the visitors. Security footage later showed the lion moving through the zoo with purpose, not randomly. He wasn't hunting. He wasn't aggressive. He was searching for something, or someone. The day. Maggie had arrived at the zoo at 1 p.m., as she did every Saturday. She'd bought her senior admission ticket, gotten a cup of tea from the cafe, and settled onto her favorite bench near the lion habitat. From this spot, she could see the lions lounging in the sun, hear their occasional roars, and feel close to the work that had meant everything to her. She'd noticed that Aslan seemed restless that day. He was pacing near the fence line, his tail twitching in a way that indicated agitation. After 40 years of working with big cats, Maggie could read their body language like a book. Something was bothering him, but she didn't think much of it. Lions had moods just like people. Maybe the storm the night before had upset him. Maybe he was simply having an off day. At 2:20 p.m., Maggie heard the alarm, a loud, piercing siren that meant emergency evacuation. She saw zoo staff running toward visitors, shouting for everyone to move calmly but quickly toward the exits. She heard someone yell, "The lion is loose. Everyone evacuate now." Around her, chaos erupted. A mother grabbed her 2 children and ran, leaving behind a stroller and diaper bag. A group of teenagers sprinted past, nearly knocking over an elderly man. A young couple abandoned their ice cream cones and fled hand in hand toward the parking lot. But Maggie didn't move. She sat on her bench, teacup still in her hands, and thought, Aslan. She knew immediately which lion had escaped. She'd seen his agitation earlier. And somewhere deep in her heart, she wondered if he was searching for her. The chaos. Zoo director David Morrison was in a meeting when the alarm sounded. He sprinted to the security office, where monitors showed multiple camera angles of the situation. His blood ran cold as he watched a massive male lion moving through the zoo's main pathways. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "The temporary fencing on Habitat 3, the security chief explained. The lion found a weak point and pushed through. He's been loose for approximately 3 minutes. Evacuation status? In progress. We estimate 300 visitors on grounds. Police and animal control have been notified." Morrison grabbed the radio. "All staff, this is Code Red. I repeat, Code Red. Do not attempt to engage with the animal. Focus on visitor evacuation. Tranquilizer team to the main plaza immediately." The zoo's emergency protocol was designed for exactly this scenario, though they'd never actually had to use it. The tranquilizer team, 3 trained staff members with dart guns, was mobilizing. The goal was to sedate Aslan before anyone got hurt. But there was a problem. The security cameras showed something that made Morrison's blood pressure spike. "Zoom in on camera 7, he ordered. The image enlarged, showing an elderly woman sitting calmly on a bench while panicked visitors ran past her. She wasn't moving. She wasn't fleeing. She was just sitting there, directly in the path the lion was traveling. "Who is that?" Morrison demanded. One of the longtime staff members leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's Maggie. Maggie Anderson. She used to work here." Morrison grabbed the radio again. "We have a civilian refusing to evacuate. Elderly woman, silver hair, red jacket, bench near the lion habitat. Someone get her out of there now." The standoff. 2 zoo security guards, Mike Chun and Patricia Williams, were closest to Maggie's location. They ran toward her, waving their arms. "Ma'am, you need to evacuate immediately." Mike shouted. "There's a lion loose." Maggie turned to look at them calmly. "I know. It's Aslan." "Ma'am, I don't care what his name is, you need to move." "I'm not leaving," Maggie said quietly but firmly. "He won't hurt me." Patricia tried a different approach. "Ma'am, I'm sure you think you know this animal, but he's dangerous. Please come with us." "I don't think I know him," Maggie replied. "I do know him. I raised him. I'm probably the only person he won't hurt. Now please step back before you agitate him." Mike and Patricia exchanged helpless glances. They couldn't forcibly drag an 82-year-old woman across the zoo, but they also couldn't leave her sitting there like bait for a lion. They took positions on either side of her, preparing to act if the situation turned dangerous. Through his radio, Morrison heard the exchange. "Fall back," he ordered. "Do not put yourselves at risk. The tranquilizer team is 2 minutes out." The approach. Aslan emerged from a cluster of trees about 50 yards from Maggie's bench. Several security cameras captured the moment from different angles, footage that would later be watched millions of times online. The lion paused, his massive head turning as he scanned the area. His golden eyes, predatory and intense, swept across the fleeing humans, the abandoned strollers, the half-eaten food scattered on tables. He showed no interest in any of it. Then he saw Maggie. Everything about the lion's body language changed. His tail, which had been lashing with agitation, began to sway in a different rhythm, one that animal behaviorists would later identify as excitement and recognition. His ears, which had been flat against his head in stress, perked forward. He made a sound, a deep, rumbling vocalization that big cat experts call a chuff. It's a sound lions make when greeting someone they trust. Maggie heard it and smiled. "Hello, Aslan," she said softly, though he was still 50 yards away. The lion began walking toward her. Not stalking, not hunting, walking with purpose, his massive paws patting softly on the paved pathway. Each step brought him closer to the woman who hadn't fled, who sat waiting for him with the same patience she'd shown 12 years ago when he was a traumatized cub. Mike and Patricia tensed, their hands moving toward the pepper spray on their belts, though they both knew it would be useless against a 450-pound lion. "Ma'am, please," Mike begged. "Please move." "Sure," Maggie said gently. "You're scaring him." In the security office, Morrison watched in horror. "Where's the tranquilizer team?" "30 seconds out," came the reply. "They're not going to make it in time," Morrison whispered, watching the lion close the distance between himself and Maggie Anderson. The distance closes. 40 yards. 30 yards. 20 yards. News helicopters had arrived, their cameras broadcasting live footage to local television stations. Reporters interrupted regular programming with breaking news. Lion escape at Springfield Zoo, elderly woman in immediate danger. Across the city, people stopped what they were doing to watch. In homes, offices, restaurants, and shops, televisions showed the unbelievable scene. A massive lion walking purposefully toward an elderly woman who refused to run. 10 yards. Morrison made a decision. "Tranquilizer team, you have green light to fire when you have a clear shot." I repeat, green light. 3 zoo staff members with dart guns took positions behind barriers, aiming at Aslan. But the lion was moving, and Maggie was close to the line of fire. It was a difficult shot. 5 yards. Maggie could see every detail now. The scars on his muzzle from his circus days, the graying around his face that indicated his age, the intelligent awareness in his golden eyes. She could smell him too, that distinctive wild scent of big cat, earthy and powerful. "Hello, my boy," she said, her voice steady and warm. "I've missed you." The moment. Aslan stopped directly in front of Maggie's bench. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The elderly woman and the massive lion, separated by just 3 feet of space. Then Aslan did something that made everyone watching, in person, on security monitors, on live television, gasp in disbelief. He lay down. Not in a hunting crouch, not in a threatening posture. He lay down the way a house cat does when it wants affection. On his side, his enormous body relaxed, his head positioned near Maggie's feet. And then he began to purr. Well, not exactly purr. Lions can't purr the way small cats do. But they can make a similar sound called prussin, or chuffing. A soft rumbling that indicates contentment and affection. Aslan was making this sound now, looking up at Maggie with an expression that could only be described as love. "Oh, Aslan," Maggie whispered, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "You remember me. After all this time, you remember." She reached down slowly and placed her hand on the lion's massive head, her fingers gently stroking behind his ears the way she'd done hundreds of times when he was younger. Aslan's eyes closed in contentment, and his chuffing grew louder. In the security office, Morrison stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. "Is this really happening?" he asked no one in particular. The recognition. Mike and Patricia, still standing nearby but no longer trying to evacuate Maggie, stared in amazement. Patricia pulled out her phone and began recording. Footage that would later go viral with over 50 million views. "Ma'am," Mike said quietly, afraid to break the spell. "How do you know this lion?" "I raised him," Maggie said, never taking her eyes off Aslan. "When he came here, he was just a baby. Traumatized, scared, aggressive. Nobody thought he'd survive. But I worked with him every day for 18 months. I fed him by hand. I talked to him. I loved him." She continued stroking his mane, her movements gentle and assured. I retired 12 years ago, but I've come back every Saturday to visit. I always sit on this bench, right here, where he can see me. I didn't know if he remembered me. I told myself he probably didn't, that I was just a foolish old woman. But I needed to be close to him anyway. Aslan rolled slightly, exposing his belly, the ultimate sign of trust in big cats. Maggie laughed through her tears. "You always did like belly rubs," she said, obliging him with long, gentle strokes across his massive stomach. The tranquilizer decision. Morrison's radio crackled. "Sir, we have a clear shot. Should we take it?" Morrison looked at the monitor, watching Maggie Anderson, 82 years old, retired zookeeper, widow, sitting peacefully with a 450-pound lion who was acting like an oversized house cat. He thought about liability, about safety protocols, about all the rules that said this situation was unacceptable. Then he thought about the bond he was witnessing, about the fact that Aslan had been searching for her, about the obvious love between this woman and this animal. "Negative," he said into the radio. "Hold your position, but do not fire. I repeat, do not fire." "Sir, are you sure?" "The protocol. I said hold your fire. That's an order." The conversation. More zoo staff had arrived now, forming a wide perimeter around Maggie and Aslan. News helicopters circled overhead. Police cars had arrived, their officers standing at a safe distance, unsure whether to intervene. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the zoo's head veterinarian, approached Morrison in the security office. "David, we need to sedate him and get him back to his habitat." "I know," Morrison said. "But look at this, Sarah. Really look at it." They both watched the monitors, seeing Maggie sitting on the bench, stroking Aslan's head, talking to him in soft, soothing tones. The lion's body language showed complete relaxation and trust. "He was looking for her," Morrison continued. "He didn't attack anyone. He didn't act aggressive. He escaped and went straight to the one person he remembered, the one person who showed him kindness when he was traumatized and scared." Sarah nodded slowly. "Maggie Anderson. I've heard the old-timers talk about her. They said she had a gift with big cats, that she could connect with them in ways that seemed almost magical." "It's not magic," Morrison said. "It's love. It's 40 years of dedication. It's patience and understanding and genuine care." He picked up his radio. "All units, maintain perimeter but give them space. We're going to let this play out." The media. By now, every major news outlet in the region was covering the story. Incredible scenes at Springfield Zoo scrolled across television screens. Social media exploded with live updates, shares, and comments. The narrative quickly shifted from dangerous lion attacks zoo to heartwarming reunion between lion and former keeper. People who'd been terrified minutes earlier were now moved to tears watching the gentle interaction. A local news helicopter captured aerial footage that showed the full scene. The massive lion lying peacefully beside an elderly woman's bench, her hand resting on his head, while dozens of zoo staff and police maintained a respectful distance. It looked like something from a fairy tale, not real life. News anchors interviewed animal behaviorists who explained that while this situation was extraordinarily rare, it wasn't impossible. Animals, especially intelligent ones like lions, can form deep bonds with caregivers. They can remember individuals for many years. And in cases of significant trauma, the animal's attachment to a trusted caregiver can be even stronger. What we're seeing, one expert explained on live television, is the result of years of patient, loving care. This lion was traumatized as a cub, and this woman rehabilitated him. That kind of bond doesn't disappear just because time has passed. He recognized her, and he sought her out because she represents safety and love to him. The resolution. After 20 minutes of this peaceful reunion, Maggie finally spoke to the zoo staff surrounding them. "I can get him back to his habitat. He'll follow me if I ask him to." Morrison, who had come out of the security office to observe in person, hesitated. "Ms. Anderson, I can't allow you to." "David," Maggie interrupted gently. She'd learned his name from overhearing radio chatter. "Look at him. He's not going to hurt me. He trusts me. But if you tranquilize him while he's this relaxed and happy, you're going to damage that trust. He'll associate being with me with being attacked. Is that what you want?" Morrison looked at Dr. Mitchell, who nodded reluctantly. "She's right. If we dart him now, it could traumatize him. And honestly, he's more likely to follow her peacefully than to comply with tranquilization and transport." "All right," Morrison said, making perhaps the most unusual decision of his career. "Ms. Anderson, can you lead him back?" Maggie stood up slowly, her old joints creaking. Aslan immediately rose to his feet, alert but not alarmed. She reached out and placed her hand on his massive shoulder. A gesture that would have gotten any other person killed, but with Maggie, it simply made the lion chuff with contentment. "Come on, boy," she said gently. "Let's get you home." And then, in front of dozens of witnesses, news cameras, and security footage that would be analyzed for years to come, Maggie Anderson walked slowly through the zoo with a 450-pound lion following her like an obedient dog. Her hand rested on his shoulder. He matched his pace to hers, occasionally looking up at her face as if to confirm she was really there. Zoo staff followed at a safe distance, hardly believing what they were seeing. Police officers stood with their mouths open. News helicopter cameras captured every step of this impossible journey. When they reached the lion habitat, Maggie led Aslan to a service entrance, a secure door that keepers used to access the enclosure. Staff had already opened it, ready to seal it the moment the lion was inside. At the doorway, Maggie paused. She knelt down slowly, her old knees protesting, until she was face to face with Aslan. She wrapped her arms around his massive neck and hugged him. Actually hugged a full-grown male lion, whispering something that the cameras couldn't pick up. Those closest reported that she said, "Thank you for remembering me. Thank you for showing me that love doesn't end just because we're apart. I love you, my boy. I'll be back next Saturday, like always." Aslan nuzzled her face, his rough tongue gently licking her cheek. Then, with one last chuff, he walked calmly into his habitat. The door sealed behind him. The aftermath. The video footage went viral within hours. By that evening, Lion recognizes former keeper was trending worldwide. The story was covered by major news networks across the globe: CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and dozens more. Maggie Anderson became an overnight sensation, though she never sought the attention. News outlets wanted interviews. Talk shows wanted her as a guest. Book publishers wanted her life story. She declined most offers, giving only one interview to the local newspaper. "I'm not special," she told the reporter. "I just did my job for 40 years. I loved the animals in my care, and Aslan remembered that. That's all this is, proof that animals have deeper emotional lives than we often give them credit for." But she did accept one invitation. The zoo board asked her to return as a consultant, specifically to work with their Big Cat program. At 82, she came out of retirement part-time, providing training to younger keepers about animal behavior, bonding, and the patient work of rehabilitation. "These animals aren't just exhibits," she told the new generation of keepers. "They're individuals with personalities, memories, and emotions. Treat them with respect and love, and you'll be amazed at what's possible." The zoo also made changes to their security protocols, ensuring that what happened with Aslan could never happen again. But they also installed a special bench with a plaque bearing Maggie's name, right where her old favorite spot had been, in view of the lion habitat. The bigger truth. The story of Maggie and Aslan teaches us several profound lessons that extend far beyond one zoo in one city. First, it reminds us that the relationships we build, with people, animals, even with the world around us, don't simply disappear when we're apart. Love, kindness, and patient care create bonds that transcend time and circumstance. Aslan hadn't seen Maggie up close in 12 years, yet he recognized her immediately. He remembered her not just intellectually, but emotionally. How many relationships in our own lives have we abandoned because time passed or circumstances changed? How many people have we forgotten who might still remember us? This story reminds us that the bonds we form through genuine care and love are more durable than we imagine. Second, it teaches us about dedication and purpose. Maggie spent 40 years caring for animals, not for fame or recognition, but because it was her calling. She didn't retire and forget about her work. She visited every single Saturday for 12 years, sitting on a bench, watching the animals she'd cared for, maintaining her connection to her purpose. In our modern world, we often think of retirement as the end of our productive lives. But Maggie shows us that purpose doesn't retire. The things that give our lives meaning don't disappear just because we stop getting paid for them. She found ways to stay connected to her calling, and that connection literally saved her life when Aslan recognized her. Third, this story is about seeing beyond fear to recognize truth. Everyone else ran from Aslan because they saw a dangerous predator. Maggie stayed because she saw an animal she'd loved and rehabilitated years earlier. Both perceptions were valid, but only one was complete. How often do we run from things because we only see the danger, not the full picture? How often do we make decisions based on fear rather than understanding? Maggie's courage came not from recklessness, but from deep knowledge and trust built over years of patient work. The scientific impact. The Aslan-Maggie incident also had lasting effects on animal behavior research. Scientists from several universities studied the footage and interviewed Maggie extensively. Their findings contributed to our understanding of long-term memory in big cats and the depth of bonds that can form between humans and animals. One published paper concluded, "The Aslan case demonstrates that felids, particularly lions, possess far more sophisticated long-term memory and emotional attachment capabilities than previously documented." The subject lion showed clear recognition of a caregiver after 12 years of separation, deliberately seeking her out in a stressful situation and displaying attachment behaviors typically associated with domesticated animals. In other words, science confirmed what Maggie had known all along. Animals love, remember, and form deep emotional bonds. The legacy. Today, 7 years after that incredible Saturday afternoon, Maggie Anderson is 89 years old. She still visits the zoo every Saturday, though now she uses a wheelchair. Aslan is 19, elderly for a lion, but he still recognizes her. When she arrives at the habitat, he approaches the viewing area and chuffs his greeting, pressing his massive head against the reinforced glass. They can't touch anymore, but the bond remains. Zoo visitors often gather to watch their interaction, moved by the visible affection between the elderly woman and the aging lion. The Dean Martin Foundation, yes, the same one Tommy Sullivan founded, now has a sister organization called the Maggie Anderson Wildlife Fund, which provides support for retired zookeepers and animal rehabilitation programs. Maggie serves on the board, using her unexpected fame to benefit the causes she cares about. She's also written a book, finally, at the insistence of the zoo board. It's called What Aslan Taught Me, 40 Years of Lessons from Big Cats. All proceeds go to wildlife conservation. In it, she writes, "People often ask me if I was scared that day when Aslan walked toward me. The truth is, I wasn't. I was hopeful. I was hoping that 12 years hadn't erased what we'd built together. I was hoping that love was stronger than time. And I was hoping that my life's work had meant something, not just to me, but to the animals I'd cared for. When Aslan lay down at my feet, all those hopes were confirmed. I learned that day that nothing we do with love is ever wasted. It echoes forward in ways we can't imagine." The message for today. This story matters today more than ever. In a world that often feels divided, cynical, and harsh, the tale of Maggie and Aslan reminds us that patience, dedication, and genuine care create bonds that nothing can break. It tells us that our work matters, even when we think no one notices. Maggie didn't rehabilitate Aslan for recognition. She did it because it was right, because he needed help, because she had the skills to make a difference. Decades later, that work saved her life and inspired millions. It reminds us that growing old doesn't mean becoming irrelevant. At 82, Maggie had more wisdom and skill than keepers half her age. Her knowledge was invaluable, her experience irreplaceable. We live in a society that often discards its elders, forgetting that age brings wisdom that can't be learned from books or training programs. And it teaches us to look deeper than surface appearances. Everyone else saw a dangerous escaped lion. Maggie saw Aslan, an individual she knew, an animal with a history, a being capable of memory and love. The truth was deeper than the fear, but it required knowledge and courage to see it. The final word. The bench where Maggie sat that day is now a landmark at Springfield Zoo. The plaque reads, "The Maggie Anderson Bench, where love proved stronger than fear, June 15th, 2019. Tourists take pictures there. Couples propose there. Children ask their parents to tell them the story of the lady and the lion. It's become a symbol of something we all need to believe in, that our kindness matters, that our relationships endure, and that love transcends every barrier we can imagine." Maggie Anderson, now approaching 90, still visits her friend every Saturday. She brings a folding chair now, and zoo staff help her set it up in front of the lion habitat. Aslan, graying and slower but still magnificent, still comes to greet her. They spend hours together, separated by glass but connected by something far stronger. "People think I come here for him," Maggie said in her book's final chapter. "But the truth is, I come here for me. Because Aslan reminds me that my life meant something. That 40 years of waking up early and working hard and caring deeply wasn't wasted. That somewhere in this world, there's a being who remembers me with love. And at the end of the day, Isn't that what we all want? To be remembered with love. Yes, Maggie. That's exactly what we all want. And your story reminds us that the way to be remembered with love is to live with love, patient, dedicated, genuine love that doesn't count the cost or expect recognition, but simply gives because giving is right. Thank you for teaching us that lesson. Thank you for showing us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's knowing something deeper than fear. And thank you for reminding us that the bonds we build with